Tamikaze here with a charting video using Bitcoin. So one of the nice things about Bitcoin is it is always trading 24/7, so you can practice your charting skills on Bitcoin and see how they react. So because Bitcoin is publicly traded, it reacts and forms patterns just like stocks do, and you can trade Bitcoin just like you can a stock. So it's a great thing to practice your charting skills on. So I have here just Bitcoin going back on the daily for a couple of years. I always start with the longer time frame and then I work into the time frame. So you always want to find the patterns that are the strongest and chart those out first. So I'm just going to talk about resistance and trend lines, and then let's go from there. So what I'm going to do here is just chart anything that I see that looks like it has a relatively strong support here. So you can see here right away there was a strong support here. It actually, if you draw it out, continues out to here. So you can see if we click off here, it was resistance, then support, and then it was support and support here. So it looks like we got another one up here. We can draw for support. Just want to make sure it touches as many points as possible. So you're going to have some dips down below and possibly above if it's support or resistance, depending on that. But you want to connect as many points as possible to make the strongest trend line. So another thing you could do is you always want to do your bottom and tops. So we could find the lowest point right here and go through here. Even though it broke below here, this was the crash from COVID, so I think the bottom points there necessarily aren't as accurate, so I want to connect all the other points as much as possible, and then we want to connect up here as many as possible too. So you could try doing this and going with your high to highs, most recent highs, and that would be a resistance line. So you have support lines here. Resistance are always ones that you want to break through. Supports are always ones you want it to bounce off. And then you're just basically trying to find any other support and resistance lines that stand out. So what you could do is maybe take here and then just kind of go like this and see if it connects with anything. If you see some good connections, you can play around with it and see if you have any connections, that sort of thing. We could see if we got any uptrends here. Yeah, and this is probably the easiest way. Find your most recent points and do that. So and you could see, you could also look horizontally if there's any just flat resistance or trend lines. So it looks like we do kind of have one right here, and then we can draw this out for future resistance as well. So once you got your most basic lines there, then you're going to want to zoom in to a closer time frame. I always just like to go day to hour, and then you can kind of play around with your chart to see. Let me go 2 hours to see if we got anything good here. Looks like you got a potential one here. Let's just see if we get some good connections here. So, and again here, you can see a lot of patterns forming here. So we have a big pennant here with a breakout, and then potentially a head and shoulders here, depending on how this goes right here. So let's see if we can find any trend lines here. So let's start here with the most recent and see if it connects with anything. Like it might connect with the bottom here. No, it's not. It's nothing strong. Could potentially eventually be relevant. I don't love that, so I'm not going to continue that. I always like to have at least 3 points. So we could see one right here, though, we could draw. Comes across here. You can see it became so it was a resistance that became support. So sometimes if I think it's both, I'll just make it an in-between color there. So it could turn back into that if this does reverse here. So now that we got those, we don't see any. looks like if you use your cursor, you can see the dashed lines across there. Might have a resistance line right here. So it looks like we got potentially a false break here, and then it came back into this flag here. It looks like you could have some support down here as well. So this potentially could be a bull flag, or it could be some shoulders and a head here. It's a very small head, so I don't love that pattern, so I like the bull flag better. But let's zoom in more and see if we can get some patterns in here. So now we're talking more of a short term, so something you could swing trade or day trade on timeline. It looks like you do have some nice patterns here that we could go in on. So let's chart those out. So you got right here, you could see that we had resistance turn support, and it looks like you could potentially see some more patterns here. So let's zoom in even more. Zoom in even more. So it looks like you have a potential pennant forming here. So we can put a red to red bottom line here, and then don't have 3 points necessarily here, but let's chart this out and see what happens. Well, it looks like it's going pretty good here, so let's connect these two lines. So looks like you have a pennant here. So basically what you would do then is you would turn this into a byline breakout, and then this would be your sell line. So you always want to wait for confirmation, and then when it breaks this green line, you could buy with a potential sell line here as old resistance, or if you want to wait for confirmation, see if it breaks through here, then you could let it ride. So then we could also look and see if we have another thing here. So let's go up here. I like this right here. So you can see here you had resistance turn support, and then this came all the way up here, and I had a small break here, but it's still considered support. So we're going to use this right here. So you always want as many things on both sides touching it. You don't want just one side, which you can certainly have ultimate. So you could draw a secondary support line. Say, whoops, let's do that. So this line's messing with me right here. So you could do a bottom here, wick to wick to wick, and you could see actually connects all three of those, so that's a great sign. So you could have, say, this as your ultimate support. So if it breaks both of these, then you know not to buy. And if we get a breakout here, we can zoom in and see what's going on at this exact minute. So you could potentially go down to the 1 minute to look for an entry if you want to be proactive. You get as many wicks as you want there. So you can see it did project off of there just now, and you can see this is live counting down, which is one of the reasons I like to practice charting on Bitcoin, is it's 24/7. At night, you could also do that on, I'm going to save that. I could also do this on futures. So let's say you wanted to go with ES. I believe in TradingView it's ES1. Just click futures, S&P futures. So you could practice on futures after 6 o'clock Eastern, and you could practice your charting there. So what you would do then with futures is start out with your longer time frames. So you can see I have some old charting done here, and it looks like we've had some breakout here. So this is something you could do, is use if you want to practice charting. Use your Bitcoin. Use cryptocurrency is great for practicing charting or futures at night, and you could kind of predict where it's going to go and then just double check your work, and some practice you can do. Hopefully this helped give you insight into how I chart and how I find support and resistance and how I turn my buy lines. If If you guys have questions, let me know, and I'll look to make some future videos and go more in depth on how I pick my bylines and my entry points and exit points.